Welcome to another episode of God Yay or Nay. I'm here with Jill Van Gyn. Jill, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Nice to
This
be
is
here.
going to be a cool podcast. I'm really interested in your story, and I'll tell everybody, you run right now Fatso High Performance Peanut Butter that's based
Yep.
in Victoria, and you have such a
Yep.
story of how you got there. Maybe you want to, yeah, I don't know, you want to jump into it right now? Maybe give my audience a little bit of an intro into who.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. It's interesting because when I think about like God, yay or nay, I mean, if anybody is like wanting to know my answer to that question, mine would be maybe. I'm not in the camp of yay or nay. So my story is very when I look back on it and I reflect on it, like my story now and my story of getting clean and starting a business is it's actually all these questions, these existential questions have come up for me throughout my life. I can't say I was very existential when I was in addiction because I didn't have a lot of space for that. But it became like ever since I got clean, I've been having like these different periods in my life, like these extremes of ups and downs, these extremes of like grief and loss and wins and like success. And like I have often started to think about like it's made me very existential. It's made me think like, what the fuck, right?
Mm.
I'm now I have difficulty making sense of the world, and sometimes I get quite introspective about it. So but I guess I'll just start from like the time I got clean because honestly, like that's really where my whole foray into like spirituality and into all things existential started. I got clean in August of 2010, so it'll be 11 years this year. And I had spent about 15 years in addiction, and I was at the end suicidal. I attempted suicide twice, and just really was like I saw no way out. Like I was just like I'm either gonna use till I die, or I'm just gonna do it myself. Like there was no meaning in my life. I didn't care about anything. I had lost all ambition. I wasn't, I was super unemployable. Um, and things just came to a head. And I was forced to go to treatment. And interesting, like the first time I went to treatment, I was not ready to go at all. And I actually had tried to kill myself. My parents were like, she needs to get clean and my my parents, like I remember begging my parents to drop me off at our local at our local mental institution.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just being like, because it was easier for me to make sense of like going and getting sane for spending a couple weeks in this facility, and then coming out and having this sort of reset and then going back to using because like I couldn't imagine my life without using.
Mm.
So they drove right by Eric Martin Pavilion, where I was hoping that they would drop me, and straight up to a recovery center in on Vancouver Island. And I just knew from the minute I stepped foot in there that like it was a clock. It was ticking down to when I could use again. Like I was not into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that is also where I met my current husband.
Oh,
My
nice.
current husband, my only husband, the
Ha,
only
ha,
husband I'll ever
ha,
have, I
the
promise.
current
The only
husband, yeah.
one. He was in there when I was there the first time, and we didn't get together until much later, but or not even that much later, but later. And so I sort of bided my time in this treatment center, and I got out and relapsed immediately with somebody else, which is always like sort of double trouble. Um, and yeah, I mean, I guess like if you're ever trying to test this theory of addiction, this was one way to do it. We say in our sort of language that it's jails, institutions, or death, that it's progressive and it's fatal, and that it always is going to get worse a lot faster. And so I went out, and I think it was about 7 or 8 weeks to get me to a point where I had, was institutionalized in a detox center a couple times, hospitalized. I was really sick. I was suicidal, and I just didn't see a way out. Um, and then something happened that kind of was what I would call my first spiritual awakening. Um, and it occurred at about 10 o'clock in the morning in a neighborhood called Oak Bay, which was sort of a childhood neighborhood of mine. And I crashed my vehicle. It was a Sunday. So there's people out and about. And I had all sorts of booze bottles in my car. And I was handcuffed, lying down on the ground. I had a officer's knee in my back. And I just remember thinking, what the fuck? What the
Yeah.
fuck?
Mhm.
Like, I grew up in a really good family. Like, my parents afforded us every material good that you could hope for.
Mhm.
Um, and, so for some reason, it was that sort of that dichotomy of being in this childhood neighborhood on a Sunday morning with respectable people, being held down by an officer, loaded out of my mind with a totaled car. There was just something about that scene that I remember so clearly, like, you can fucking, like, smell the cement, like, under my nose, like, it was very visceral. It was the only moment of clarity I had that day or for the days to follow, and it was the first time in my life that the idea of getting clean was less terrifying than going out again,
Mm.
and I think for some people, they would be like, "Well, of course it was, Jill, like, what the fuck?" But, like, I think people have to understand that, like, my natural state is to be high out of my fucking mind.
Yeah.
My natural state is to be using. This is what addiction is, right?
Mhm.
This is who I am, this is what I do. So when an addict all of a sudden has that shift where and it wasn't that much, it was just this, like, little bit of, um, this sort of glimmer of, like, "Fuck, maybe getting clean is the answer."
Mhm.
Because the scene that I was in at that period of time was so against my worldview of who I thought I was. And now it was proven to me, like, even, like, going in and out of detoxes and, like, fucking just being an absolute asshole and, like, just having no job prospects at the age of 30 and, like, oh, I was just such a mess. Like, none of that mattered, but it was something about that scene on that Sunday morning that made me go, like, "This has gone too far." And actually used that night. I got bailed out, of course. And used that night, and I think it took me about 3 days before I begged to go back to treatment.
Oh wow.
And I went back to treatment, and, like, so I was like, I'd walk in there like, "Yeah, I got this. It's gonna be great." And, like, they knew me. They knew my fucking game already. They knew that I was not gonna stay clean when I left the first time, um, and they took me into this room, and they were like, "Okay, so here's the thing, like, you can stay, but you're gonna go into a government-funded recovery house." And I was like, "Fuck you guys. I'm out of here. Like, I'm Jill. I'm 30. Like, I'm not gonna be in, like, some government-funded recovery house. Like, of course not. That's not what I do."
Mm.
And, like, somehow I was better than that. Um, so I remember I threw this, like, tantrum and, like, left the room, and I was like, "Fuck those guys." They're like, "You can pack your bags now. Like,
Yeah.
you have one choice." So I was like, "Fine, I'll fucking pack my bags. I'm out of here." And then, I don't know, something stopped me, and I was like, "If you go out, you are gonna die. Like, you'll
Mhm.
die." And so again, for the second time, the idea of getting clean was a better option than continuing to use. So again, like, that was like, to me, I still look back on it and just like, I've never felt that in my life. Like, I never felt that feeling of the option of getting clean was even a possibility.
Yeah.
But the idea of using was actually scarier now. And so that's where I started, and it was not like it wasn't like a bolt of lightning, and it wasn't like I didn't think like that every day. There were days where I was like, "I am better than this." Like the day I moved into the recovery house, I was just like, "These are not my people," and like, "Of course they're my people. Of course they're my people."
Ha
Like,
ha 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 ha.
fuck. Um, and then I remember I went into like spite mode where I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do everything this program requires of me, because I went into a 12-step program, as many of us do, not all of us, but many of us do. And so I was like, I'm going to go to meetings every fucking day. I'm going to do these steps. I'm going to get a sponsor, and like, I'm going to be of service and welcome people at the door. And in 3 months, when I'm done with this recovery house, I'm gone, I'm out of here, and I can show everybody it doesn't work, because I did all of the things and it still didn't work. And the joke's on me, because it fucking worked.
Ha, 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 ha.
It worked. It worked in a way that I did not expect. And it was just kind of like this edging into like, hey, being clean, maybe it is better than using. Like, weird, like I can function for days at a time without the use of drugs. Like, I'm finding some happiness in my life without the use of drugs. I'm finding purpose and meaning in my life without the use of drugs. And um, I sort of built on that. And
Mhm.
um that's where I started to rebuild my life. So that's the story of how I got clean. But I also, things didn't just keep going up from there. I think people sort of look at my life on paper and go like, "Oh, she did it!"
Yeah, and
Like,
then it's because I
yeah,
guess it's kind of like another journey after that.
yeah,
Because I know when you're like, especially if you're like kind of intoxicated all the time, and then you come out of that, like all
well,
of a sudden, like you were saying, now you're even more existential because now you're trying to
yeah,
find meaning in the life. You were always
you
trying to
are.
numb that feeling of searching with
Hmm.
like intoxicants before, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like spirituality, like I was introduced to spirituality through a 12-step program, and like You know, I I've never been able to grasp the concept of a higher power. For me, it's been very like we're told like you have to have one.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had this feeling of like a deep connection to a higher power. I've had fleeting moments of it for sure when I was like deep in the steps, like doing the 12 steps and like doing like, meditation and that type of stuff. Um, but yeah, it's tenuous for sure. But I prefer, it's my preference to leave the door open for something. That's about as far as I can go, because I just find that like, I have no fucking idea what's out
Yeah,
there, but
yeah,
like I think I'll just err on the side of caution and just like leave that door to the spiritual open
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and be like, hey, if there is like a power greater than myself, like awesome, great. But I also have a lot of difficulty grasping that whole concept.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so anyway, so I got clean, and yeah, I didn't really know what to do. I spent the first couple of years just in the program, just being in a 12-step program. I met my now husband, is the word that I was looking for, not current husband.
Ha 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 ha
I
ha.
let I met my now husband, and we did a lot of recovery together. And like I got extremely embedded in a 12-step program, and had a lot of success with that. And then I started to think about what I wanted to do with my life. And there's these. This is sort of what leads me to my next sort of crisis of uh, self, and the next sort of question about like what the fuck are we supposed to be doing with our lives here. um I didn't have a lot to go on with my careers that I had done as an active addict. I had had some work in like communications and in like some advocacy and nonprofit lobbying and that type of stuff. So I wasn't totally without a resume, but it wasn't great. There was huge gaps in it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in my undergrad, I had always wanted to go work internationally. I did my undergrad degree in poli sci, and I specialized in genocide studies. And I worked with a professor that was running the Montreal Institute of Genocide Studies. And I just obviously never pursued that afterwards because I took a break from school and then never went back. Um, and so I thought, okay, great. I'm going to go out and do a master's degree because nobody's going to hire me with an undergrad degree, because that's what they tell you, right? They're like, okay, first you have to get that undergrad degree and
Mm-hmm.
then you'll get the job. By the time you complete that, they're like, wait, but you also need a master's now.
Yeah.
And it that was like what they were telling me to do. So I was like, fucking cool, I'll go do this master's degree. So I applied and got into a program called Human Security and Peace Building.
And
And it was
this was after like your
oh yeah,
recovery?
sorry. Yeah,
Okay.
this
Yeah,
was
this was
after
after.
I had
Okay.
gone into recovery. And this is where I'm kind of like, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know what we're supposed to do. I can't get a job without a master's degree, it seems like. I sort of ignored the fact that I had a really fucking messy resume. But so I went out to pursue this master's degree, and I did really well. Like, I did everything I needed to do that I should have done in my undergrad. I graduated top of my class, and I spent 6 months in northern Uganda doing my research. I was researching the nexus of like a growing oil industry with a post-conflict society, and I went and lived out there, did this research, got published. I got to work with the London School of Economics, like won this Chancellor's Award that was like, you're going to graduate top of your class.
Nice.
Um, and yeah, it was, but it was also frustrating because I had started to apply for jobs after I got this master's degree and was coming up empty-handed wherever I turned. And it was incredibly
Even with
frustrating.
like this like
Yeah.
Uganda thing under your belt?
Yeah. Yeah. It was just like I came back to Canada, and I just like I don't know, like I wanted a job where I was working with people, where I was helping in some way, where I was moving policy forward or something to that effect. And the international sphere is highly competitive. It pays almost nothing. You can get volunteer jobs. That's about it that you can get without a ton of experience. I was very resentful towards the my program because, as I found out, after at all these job applications, it's always like 10 years of experience plus a master's degree, right? To get any type of job that's going to pay you any type of money to do this work. I just didn't know that, right? I thought
Mm.
master's degree, I'll be good. And so I just remember feeling like my full-time job was job hunting, like day in, day out. And then I would start to like move that benchmark down. Okay, it's like, okay, you're not going to get this job at the UN, and like I can't like uproot right now, and because we were going to try and start a family, and okay, so I'm going to work for the Canadian government. And then like I would like bump that bar down and be like, okay, I'll work for the provincial government, and like could not, went to interview after interview, would get shortlisted. Like I started to have these like crazy experiences where I would like apply for a job, and then I get a letter in the mail and be like, we've decided that this position no longer exists. And it was just like, I was like, I don't know what to do here. Like, I'm now 35, and I've done what you guys fucking told me to do, which is like go get a master's degree, work really hard, pull up your fucking bootstraps. Like, oh, like it just became this like I was applying for like these low level positions, the assistant to an assistant, a temporary position within the government. And I was just coming up empty handed. And I was working for free, just trying to get some experience. And this is like the point of time where I had this other existential crisis, which is like, I'm clean now. Like, I'm clean, and I've done everything that I'm supposed to do by like the society standards. I'm an upstanding citizen. What the fuck else do you want? And it felt so frustrating because a master's degree doesn't guarantee you a job anymore. An undergrad degree certainly doesn't. Experience, but even then, you need so much in a very specialized field. Like, you can't be this sort of scattershot type of experience. And I just didn't have any of that. And I just saw no way forward. And I remember thinking, like, at least when I was in addiction, I knew what was causing the problem.
Oh yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah. And now I was like, I had these accolades and all this experience. And, you know, I just thought, what the fuck am I going to do? And it drove me to this really dark place. And it was the first time clean where I wasn't suicidal, but I also was like not having a good time living.
Mhm.
And unemployment is a very specific type of mental illness, because it can drive you to these places. Like, I would call it situational depression, um, which is what I experienced for about a year and a half. Um, and it's really tough. And in many ways, it's very isolating, because your family wants to support you because you have done so well. But after a while, when you don't have a job, they're kind of like, well, what the fuck is wrong with her?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what they were thinking, but I know that it probably wore a little thin. And, always being like, oh yeah, I've got this lead, and, I hope it's going to work out. And like, "Oh, I've done so much work on this." And, after a while, you just lose faith and you lose hope, and you start to think that you're definitely not good enough, and you're a burden to your family. You're now again somehow a burden to society. And, after, it's okay to be unemployed for a while, but not that long. And I just retreated into this place of really deep depression, and um, just questioning everything, because not only had I pulled myself out of like addiction and, this like awful, 15 years, but I had gotten clean and gotten happy, got my life back, got my family back, and then started to rebuild it in the way that I was told I had to rebuild it. And that proved to do nothing for me,
Mm.
nothing for me. And I would consider it, I was like, okay, I'll just go do a PhD. But I had met so many people, like you think fucking unemployed master's students are bad. Where do you meet a fucking unemployed PhD student? It's like, I had so many friends that I met when I was in Uganda that were doing their PhDs, and they were absolute basket cases. I mean, just in this exact same position that I was in, right? But they're looking for postdocs, and they've invested another half a decade in
Yeah, no kidding.
education. And they're just like, they're fighting for these like meager postdoc positions. And I just thought, I can't go there. I can't be 40 and then be right back where I am right now, because that is a very real possibility.
Yeah.
So, um, but there was something interesting that sort of happened in that space, which was I was just crazy enough to entertain pretty much fucking anything. I didn't care what it was. I just needed to be useful. Um, and I ended up taking a job. This was a guy at my gym who owned a health food restaurant. He wanted to franchise it. And I was like, I am the woman for that job. And I was not the woman for that job. Um,
But you were just like, let's
I
do
was
it.
like,
You
let's do
were
it.
ready.
I mean, I had worked a lot in the food and beverage industry, but he was not great at business. And it was just a really tough, I was sort of roadblocked everywhere I went with it, but it was paying the bills and I was kind of happy. And I was like, all right, I'll just do this until I can figure out what my next move is. And we were selling this peanut butter in this health food restaurant called Fatso. And the two owners of it, they'd drop off a case here and there, and then we'd never hear from them. But it was a fantastic concept. The name was awesome. And I was like, why are these guys like not doing more with this business? Like, we can never get them to fill POs. I knew that they were selling in a few other places around town. And so I went to the retailers and said, like, can you guys get like stock from these guys on a regular basis? Because I can never get a hold of them. They're like, no, and they're super difficult to deal with. And um, so I just sort of thought, okay, well, it's too bad because it's a fantastic product. And one day it occurred to me that I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll ask them if I can help out a bit here, because their social media was abysmal and they didn't have very good retail relationships. And I knew a bunch of the retailers around town. And so I, said, hey, listen, like maybe you guys let me buy in. I can do some marketing for you and, help you get this brand off the ground. And they were like, nope, don't want it. So I was like, all right, that sucks because this business is amazing. So one day I got a call from one of the retailers actually, because they knew I'd been interested in the brand for some time. He said, "You might be in luck because Fatso's inventory, the Vancouver Island health authorities came in and seized their inventory because they were operating without a license, like a health authority license. Like you can't just make jars of peanut butter and then put them on shelves in stores. Like you actually have to have like health and safety regulations.
Yeah, of course.
They were not doing this, and somehow they got found out, and so they said this might be a good time for you
This
to
is
approach them. So I did.
some homegrown peanut butter, I guess, eh?
Hey, I'm not against it because to be honest, when I was in recovery, like my first like I think year and a half in recovery, I actually ran an underground bakery where I was doing pretty much that. I was selling like these like protein balls and these like little cakes like through a gym. Like it was totally like not.
Ha
I'm
ha
all
ha
for
ha
that.
ha.
Like fuck
Hey,
the
nothing
authorities,
wrong with that. Yeah, yeah. Ha 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 ha.
but yeah, so their inventory got seized, and so I went to them and I said, "Listen, I'm going to make you a good offer here. I want you guys to give up the name, and I want you to give me the recipe and all the rights to it, and like I'll take it from there. You guys obviously they had nowhere to go. Like it
Yeah,
was
like
really,
they're kind of done.
yeah, they were done. So I bought it for about a price of a used car, and
Ooh.
started making it out of the back of this health food restaurant. I had two stand mixers. So it was just really a process of mixing these plant-based fats. Oh, if people don't know what Fatso is, it's an all-natural nut butter enriched with plant-based fats. So we have like organic coconut oil, MCT oil, chia, and flax in it.
Nice.
And it's delicious. We have 3 flavors in 2 varieties: peanut and almond and seed. Check it out, eatfatso.com. There's my plug.
Woo.
Um, but so I was like making, and what I didn't know was that like making peanut butter is really fucking messy. Like it's messy and it's cumbersome. It's super hard to clean up. And so I was like, this is not going to work. I need to find somebody to pack this for me. So I did that. And I'm lucky, as I said before, I come from a family of means. So I was able to get a loan from my dad to help start the business. And so I took out this loan and went and found a co-packer and, launched the product through that co-packer. And it was the first, I think it was like 8,000 pounds of inventory. It was like 3 pallets landed in my driveway. I had
Nice.
pre-orders all over the city because I had gone and spent 3 months like just repairing all these retail relationships, being like, there's new ownership, like we're going to take this to the next level. And I had a bunch of retailers that were interested, and this product landed in my driveway. I packed up my car. I was so excited. I think I had like $2,000 in orders, and I was like, I'm gonna be rich.
Ha 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 ha.
And then I was like, oh shit, I guess I should taste it. So I took a jar inside, and I'll never forget it. I like my knees gave out because the recipe it tasted like shit.
Oh
Tasted like
no.
yeah. And I just remember thinking, like, of course, like this is gonna be the time that Jill started a peanut butter company, and it's gonna be this sad attempt at like trying to get my life together. And I think I like kind of crawled under the covers for 3 days at that point. And it was like this sort of like this cave that I had entered for the past year and a half that I had left when I had started to emerge. I kind of went back into it for about 3 days. And then I was like, okay, you have two choices here. You can succumb to this and throw in the towel, or you can figure out a way out of this. And I did. I managed to get it sent back and got it remade after a lot of conflict with the Packers.
And what
Um,
happened, you know?
they just put a wrong ingredient. There was a lot that went wrong there, and this is a little bit inside baseball, but like always get a contract with your co-packer. Make sure that they'll let you be on the floor when they make your product. Always interrogate their ingredients. This is stuff I did not know. And this is stuff that they sort of said, they patted me on my head and were like, don't worry, little girl, we'll take this product from
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And so that was fucked and bad, and it was a really bad co-packing relationship, but we managed to launch the product with them. And then 2 years later, I moved to a really large facility. It's one of the biggest nut butter facilities in North America. We work with them to this day. They're fantastic. So So that is sort of how I found Fatso. But I think the point with all of it was uh, that I was just in this like really like it's a weird space. Like if I had gotten like even like a temporary position in the government, part time, $16 an hour, no promise of any other job coming down the pipes, I would have been like, I did it. I fucking made it. And the idea of buying a peanut butter company at that point would have been ridiculous because I would be on my way to working my way up through the government then. And I just look back on that time. It was so critical and there were so many moving parts that had to come into place. Like I had to experience this like intense depression. I had to be open to possibility. I had to be able to be introspective and think about like how am I going to get myself out of this without relapsing for fuck's sake.
Mm,
And I just had these moments of clarity along the way that helped me get through. And it was not dissimilar to that time where I realized that, getting clean might be better than using. Um, and I, don't know what it was. Perhaps it was just being open to new opportunity, or it was just a form of absolute insanity. And because that's what it felt like. It felt like insanity at that point to start a peanut butter company. And I haven't shaken the idea that I have no business doing this. I like recently got a cover of the BC Business magazine, and it was the Women of the Year big cover. And
nice.
for some reason, I just haven't been able to enjoy it because I'm like, yeah, but look at all the other women that deserve to be on that. Like, why would I be on that? Seems silly. Um, and I've struggled, and it is just sort of the nature of who I am, and this sort of hangover from being an addict for so long and feeling so worthless. And then also getting clean and doing all this work and then still feeling like a pile of shit. I've really struggled with the idea of fairness and deserve that word, like who deserves what. um, why do people deserve things? Why do I have a wonderful family and a beautiful home and a successful business when there are women or other people who just have had less opportunity, who are much more brilliant than I am and much more creative? And like, why don't they have that? Like, I wrestle with that every day. Um, but being an entrepreneur, I think, is part of that. It's a total mental game. And I I don't know. I think that, I mean, it's definitely my battle to fight. Um, but I've never felt comfortable with the success that I've had. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it didn't ever feel like it was supposed to be what I was supposed to have,
hmm
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's like an incredible story. Yeah, honestly, like even coming, like I was thinking when you were talking about like getting into your masters and like just kind of like how it like it's told to you, right? Like this is like
Hmm.
what you're supposed to do, and this is like I feel so bad for like students these days because it's not like
Yeah.
how it was like 30 years ago. 30 years ago, you get your masters, at least like you're getting some
Yeah.
sort of security out of it.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
we keep telling people that now, right?
It's fucked, man. Like I honestly like I think the cover is being pulled back somewhat these days. Just with the I mean, student debt is definitely more of an issue in the United States, but um it's a goddamn free for all. And I have never, like, here's the thing, it's like my position in society, like my parents are well connected. For all intents and purposes, I should have had like things laid out for me, no problem. Even at 35 with a master's degree. Like I don't know if it was just my bad luck or what it was, just the timing. Maybe if I had held out for another month, I would have got my dream job. I don't know. Um, but it just isn't the case anymore. People are not entering careers, and having one career in their lifetime. Many people are working multiple jobs. That promise of advanced education is a total fucking farce. I mean, it is a farce. And I don't mean to denigrate anybody that has done that and is doing well in their careers, or anybody who is pursuing academia. But I do know a lot of people in academia who would agree that it is it is a very, um, it's a very difficult institution, any academic institution. It is wrought with lots of unfairness, and there is no promise at the end of a master's degree. I think one of my biggest regrets truly was, especially when I was in this space after I'd finished my master's degree, was like, why the fuck didn't I do something practical? Like, why didn't I go into like, you know, electrical engineering,
Ha,
like
ha,
a
ha. Yeah.
skilled labor trade? That is a guarantee, right? So, I think a lot about, it's been something recently too. Like I've had some recent experiences when I think about unfairness. And it's a bit of a touchy subject, but because I'm sort of in it right now, but we've had a lot of difficulty having kids. We've been in the process for 5 years now, or 4 years. Um, I'm currently headed into, I think, our eighth round of IVF. So lots of miscarriages, and we have a son, thank God. Like, I like feel very lucky for that. But
Mhm.
we've been through the ringer on that type of stuff, and we recently had a really late miscarriage after thinking we were out of the woods, and that put me right back into this. Like, and this is where like these I've had these periods in my life starting in 2010 all the way up to now, with like getting clean, and then this like whole career situation and Fatso, and then now with this IVF is like, what the fuck is God? And I,
Ha,
I will
ha,
tell
ha,
you,
ha.
like, I have a fantastic therapist, and I get very like existential on these things because like the pain and loss that we went through trying to conceive our son, and like it is a deeply difficult um thing, infertility for anybody.
Mhm.
um but we really we've been through pretty much all of it. We ended up having to use an egg donor, and we got pregnant on our first try after 4 attempts, 4 or 5 attempts, five, five now. And just tons of loss there, and people being like, "Well, have you considered adoption?"
Mhm.
And like, there's so many kids in this world that are like out there that need to be adopted, and what people don't know is that um, that isn't what it's about. Of course, we consider adoption. We had our application all ready to go. Adoption starts at $30,000 here in Canada domestically. If you want an infant, then you'll wait an extremely long time, or you have to adopt from the United States or Japan, which runs $60,000 to $90,000 US. So with IVF, where it's like $7,000 to $8,000 a pop, it's a numbers game, right? You're four into it, and you're like, you have to be, and also adoption agencies won't consider you if you're not done with IVF. You can't have both. You can't adopt and
Jesus.
pursue. So people don't know a lot about that. So they judge. Like, why would you spend so much money just to have a biological child? And I have to be like, hey, listen, I'm not having a biological child, so you can just leave that alone. And he is my husband's biological son, but
Mm.
not mine. So, I've had to grapple with, and this was all happening right when I was starting fat. So we started all of this.
Ha,
So
ha, 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 ha.
it was a real like
Yeah, heavy. Like,
interesting, yeah, trajectory for us. And then recently, after, we had Remy, and we thought, okay, we're going to try another one. Um, and we just felt like we deserve this. We deserve to have like a completely normal pregnancy. We deserve to have like none of the worry that we had before. And yeah, we just found out the baby didn't survive at the 12-week. It was 13 weeks when we found out. And
sorry about that.
yeah, it's still a little fresh, but yeah, it really like, if we're talking about like how to make sense of the world, because that's all we're ever trying to do, really.
Mhm.
And Sorry, I'm on a lot of hormones too right now
There's no worries, no
because we
worries.
are going into IVF right now, so I'm like super hormonal. But yeah, it's you start to question like, what do you have to do in life to create a good outcome? And the answer I've come on is there is nothing you can do. And then that leads me to the question, well, like, so what's with God?
Ha
Like,
ha
what the
ha ha.
fuck?
Yeah.
Because the thing is that like I kind of need God right now. Like I kind of need like I need an explanation.
Hmm. That's all right. You want an answer. You want some meaning or something, right?
Yeah, like I feel like I deserve answers. But then I think about like all these like if you just look at like who gets what and what people do, prayer, worship, good deeds. And I don't know. I don't think that is what gets you anywhere.
Hmm.
So that's why I say like maybe like I don't know. Am I supposed to be learning something from this? As is like are these experiences that I'm having supposed to make me into a person that is going to have an impact in some way? Like is it turning me into this sort of this person that like I don't know,
Well, I
my
was gonna
experience.
say when you were talking about coming out of recovery, it did seem like the way you were describing it, the 12-step program kind of made you more into service and stuff like that. And then
Totally.
coming into this business, it seems like, and from hearing like you speak in other places too, it seems like
Yeah.
you've coming into more of like a giving person, like even socially and charity
Oh,
wise, like.
totally. Yeah.
And yeah, like I don't know, like it maybe like yeah, like I said, like I have no idea, but I do think
Yeah.
it these experiences have changed you, and from my impression, it changed you into more of a giving person, which this world can definitely use a lot more of,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, we've been really fortunate. Like when I started the company, I was like, okay, the first thing I'm going to do if we're ever successful is give back. And we've done like a ton of philanthropic work, lots of charity work, lots of activism, just through our platform and through like donations. And we just actually were about to launch. By the time this podcast airs, we'll have just launched our micro grant program for sex workers here in Victoria. So I've been it's kind of cool because all the stuff that I actually wanted to do with my degree, I've done had a way bigger impact than I would
Yeah,
have done
exactly.
working in policy in the UN or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I guess it has changed me into the person like that I do want to give back. Um, I also think that I'm so terrified of being bad. Like, and this is, I mean, this is the whole driver for religion, right? We're so scared of being bad because we don't want to incur God's wrath.
Ha, ha, yeah, yeah.
And then they go, okay, well, these bad things happen to you because God's trying to teach you a lesson. And you're like, oh, okay. So I guess like I just have to keep doing the good stuff. Then they're like, yeah, just like take your like pain and like turn it into good. And you're like, yeah, okay, good, sweet, okay. And then
Ha, ha.
something bad happens again, and you're like, okay, so this is like another fucking lesson, right? Like I'm supposed to like learn something from this. Or like, I don't know, maybe. And there's just a point where you're like, okay, what the fuck? Like, I just need, like, I, you know, recovery, depression and infertility and miscarriage and all that bullshit. Like, it has just made me really step back. And now more than ever, like today, with where I'm at, and with like the grief and loss that we've had to carry over this past few months, like, it has just made me start to think about nobody like, the only thing that I can come up with is the world is unfair, and the more you try and make sense of it, the more you're gonna hurt yourself, and that's just where I'm at right now because I feel like the more I try and make sense of it and the more I try and mold myself into something that I think I should be doing, um, the more it hurts,
Hmm.
because you're like, why? Like,
Have you ever listened to any of Alan Watts?
no.
Okay, like I think you might like his philosophy a little bit. It's a very like
Mm,
Zen Taoist kind of philosophy, and it's
right.
when you're talking about good and bad, like his like the philosophy around that is like good and bad doesn't really exist. Like that's just a human
No,
conceptualization of it, right?
totally.
And yeah, like if you're and like the way you're talking about like constantly going after, constantly chasing like what's fair,
Yeah,
constantly like it's kind of like showing like that's kind of like your mind grasping at answers, like trying to find something to make sense of it all. And
yeah,
like when you do that, like you kind of stay into the cycles of suffering a lot more. And that's kind of like whereas
totally.
yeah, whereas like philosophy, like I would recommend checking him out. I
Yeah,
honestly I listen to him on YouTube all the time. Just he's like he's a dead philosopher now, but like he's like one of my
that's cool.
favorites. And
Alan Watts. Yeah, I'll check that out for sure.
yeah, because I think I think you would get a lot from him.
Yeah, it's strange, like being at this point in my life and being like, because like with the poli sci background, of course, we had to fucking all the philosophers, we had to learn all of that stuff, and I didn't give a shit about it. But now I'm just like, what is the nature of good and bad? What is this word that we think about of deserve or karma or anything like that? And I I almost need there to be a God, because I need there to be an explanation. And then I'm like struck with the fact that like you're like, oh yeah, that's why religion was created. What the fuck? Like, because it's just like that's what I mean, to me, that's why religion was created, is people just live in fear and they need an explanation for something, right? And
Mhm.
it's easier to create this like idea of like how the world works based in the spiritual realm that nobody can actually see or actually experience, and there's no way to prove it, but you just have to have blind faith. And that's like that's easy. Like I could say like, if I was a religious person in the sort of like the Christian faith, like I could say, no, God's just preparing me for what's coming down the road. And the one that I fucking hate the most is like, God will never give you more than you can handle. And it's like, really? Because I kind of feel like I can't handle anymore right now. Like I kind
Yeah.
of feel like I'm like I need to call it a day with this shit. Like, and so, and that's like, it's a scary thing because we are going to try to have another baby again. And like, I just live in constant fear because it's like, well, how do I deserve? I deserve to have a regular pregnancy. Like now I deserve it, right? Because like I've been through enough of it now.
Mm.
But the reality is that that may not happen. And so yeah, so those are that would be this is my current spiritual state now that I've laid everything out to the public.
And
So yeah,
yeah, and like it's
comfortable.
interesting, like how you were talking about like postdoc people that you used to work with, and like I bet you like especially people going into poli sci and all of those kind of like places, like they're all looking to kind of address that issue of fairness. They want more
Yeah,
fairness in the world. They
yeah,
want to help. Like it's people with this kind of mindset, and then they end up
yeah,
in a system that frickin' is unfair. They end up in a
yeah,
system that frickin' kind of ends up destroying them themselves, like, or destroying
yeah.
their like worldview, because like you don't want to be in the office doing papers when like that's
No,
kind of your
yeah,
passion, right?
yeah. Yeah, no, I really like I think that it is like this concept of fairness that has driven me a lot. And like I don't understand, like I spent so much of my life just being a fucking jack off. Like Jesus Christ, like I don't deserve shit. And I've been given every opportunity through my parents, you know, um wealth and connections. And like I certainly am not a self-made business person. I've had like tons of help with that. And so I'm operating from this like extreme place of privilege when I'm like, what is fair? While I like, drink fucking canned sparkling water and like have nice sheets and shit. Like, so like I'm super aware of that. But I think it is that day in, day out questioning of how to move on. I mean, this more recent loss that we've had has really put into stark relief, like, hey, suffering is suffering, like, whether your sheets feel good or not. But um, it has driven me a lot, and it's one of the reasons why I continue to give away company money, and like a lot of peanut butter, and because I really want to be, I want to level the playing field. Like I want to share the success that I've had with other people. I want to figure out ways that I can lift people up and,
Honestly though,
get
like
them going.
that kind of work is what we need right now, and that we need it from every angle. So like you
Hmm.
coming at
Hmm.
it from your like angle is just like something that like we need to like promote that and like actually show how good that of work that is. So like I
Yeah.
wouldn't, yeah, like I would try to find meaning in that a little bit, because like it is honestly like
Yeah.
great work, and it's something that's we need. um
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. We were talking beforehand, and you were mentioning atheism.
Yeah.
Why is that never? Have you never jumped into that
No.
pool or whatever that is?
No, it's so funny. I remember I was listening to this podcast. Actually, it's like it was when like podcasts first started happening. Comedians actually started getting podcasts. I think it was Ari Shafir, who's an absolute fucking idiot. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Anyways, I was listening to one of his podcasts, and it was on atheism. And he had this woman on. She was younger. She was like this youth leader who was an atheist and was like leading this atheism movement, and it was good. They had this like really engaging conversation, and like I was like, yeah, like they're making a lot of good points here. And they were talking all about like, the intensity of religion and like why religion is bad, and why it doesn't exist and all this sort of stuff. And then at the end, I think they brought up, agnostics, like people that, kind of leave the door open, like myself. And they were like, yeah, those agnostics can get fucked. They're insane too. And I was
Ha
like,
ha 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 ha
wait a
ha.
second, wait a second here. Like, and they were going on and on about how atheism, like there can't possibly be anything. You're an idiot if you believe anything else. And I was like, this is beginning to sound religious.
Yeah.
Like that fervent, unshakable belief in something, calling everybody else idiots for not believing the same thing that you do. That sounds really familiar to me. And that was the first time I was like, yeah, fuck atheism. Like, fuck you guys. Um, and like there was this other thing that because I get worried. Like there's always these little articles that I get like notifications for, like Scientific America or whatever. And I remember this one that came up, and it was this scientist that said, "We prove there's no God if like we know all the rules on physics, and if there was a God particle, we would have found it by now. So you're wrong." And I remember feeling this deep disappointment and fear of that. I was like, "No, no,
Fear
no,
of
no, no,
what?
don't." Fear of somebody proving that there is no God.
Oh, okay.
Like, that is really scary to me.
Mm,
I think it's scary to a lot of people for different reasons, but
hmm.
as I said, I like that door open. It gives me a sense of comfort, right? I mean, there may not be anything, but maybe there is something, maybe something beyond our what we're able to conceptualize. And I just find that atheism just borders on, no, it doesn't border on. It dips right into religion, right? They have these hard and fast principles, intensely scientific. There's no room for movement. Fuck the agnostics. Fuck anybody who's keeping the door open. You're all idiots. Can't you see the truth? And that's like really, to me, is just the epitome of arrogance. It is just the fucking epitome of arrogance. Just like when you have people knocking on your door, be like, "Have you heard the good word?" It's
Ha
like,
ha
yes,
ha
we've
ha ha
all
ha
heard the
ha ha
word.
ha. Ha.
We all know by now. I don't want what you're selling. Like, just let me like exist in this middle land, please. And so atheists, you can get fucked. Um, but I mean, whatever. Believe whatever you want. I don't fucking care. Do whatever you want, guys. Just don't hurt anybody else while you're doing it. That's really my only like rule for any type of belief or religion. My own personal worldview is believe what you want. Don't hurt people in the process. That's
Oh
all you
yeah.
have to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I think most like sane people have that kind of view. But yeah, and I've always like I have a comedy bit on being an agnostic as well. I am agnostic,
Okay.
and like
Yeah.
the in the bit, it's like the people who give me the most shit aren't like the religious people, it's the atheists.
The atheists.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I'll have to
know.
send you that bit so you'll because I think
Please,
you'll
I would love to see
appreciate
that.
that.
Yeah, because they're fucked. But yeah, I don't know, this is even the past, like the pandemic and all this QAnon stuff, like to me reads religion all over it. Like all the conspiracy theories, all the QAnon stuff, all the stuff, even like the anti-vax stuff, like um just the conspiracy theories about the coronavirus itself, it screams like this is how religion was created. It's a way to explain things that are super scary in a way that fits your worldview. Um, the stuff that happened with QAnon, same thing. It's just people need an explanation. The world is incredibly fucked up. And it's much easier to believe in reptile people that eat babies or that this is a biological warfare weapon than it is like we're just so incompetent that we can't run countries or our own public health. Like
Hmm.
that's all it is. Like I don't believe like in the like well, of course I don't believe in these conspiracies, but what I've come to believe about the world is that we aren't that smart and we're definitely not that organized. We don't keep secrets well. So I can't imagine a, centuries old cabal hiding alien life forms and like sucking the lifeblood from like the youth of the nation. You can't keep that type of secret. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, I've just like I know we have to wrap this up, but yeah, I just really think a lot about, when all these conspiracy I feel sorry for people because it is scary and it is much easier to believe that like China released a virus on us. And it's like, no, I think there might have just been some incompetence and like some mistakes that were made and this thing spread like wildfire and people didn't want to believe that we were entering into a potentially like deadly worldwide situation. It's really hard for people to take that in and they need explanations and they need explanations right now. They also need explanations that aren't going to interfere on what makes them comfortable day to day,
Yeah.
like walking free without a mask or like having to like not take a vaccine. People don't like to have be told what to do, and so that was my thought on
Yeah, it's actually
religion and
kind of weird when you were talking about QAnon too, because like I come from like now like that I do consider myself agnostic. I'm also very
mhm,
like spiritual as well, and like
mhm.
my spirituality comes more in like a meditation, more in like a
Sure, yeah,
consciousness, more in like that kind of self-development kind of way. And it's
mhm,
funny to see like a lot of people who I admire in like that kind of world, there about half of them kind of went over to this kind of QAnon slash
mm,
like that kind of stuff where I was just
yeah,
like, no way, like how the fuck did you guys go into this
yeah,
world? Because and it is kind of true. Like when you're talking about spirituality, when you're talking about consciousness, when you're talking about
yeah,
this, the people that are open to it are open to those kind of ideas. They're open to
yeah,
ideas that are out there. And then when
yeah,
QAnon came along, like it like sucked a lot of those people in, and it's crazy seeing like people in the consciousness movement
yeah,
go like, oh, look at Donald Trump as like he's a
yeah.
secret pedophile hunter or whatever the hell QAnon even believes in. But it was just like it was mind-blowing to see these two worlds meet.
Yeah, I I honestly feel like there was a deep sense of instability during that period of time and that there was a deep need for explanation. And I think people often look, I mean, even if you're in the consciousness community, people will often look outside of themselves rather than being introspective and, interrogating the rational. And it is very easy. I mean, I deeply believe, and this is only my belief, that religion was founded because it was an easy way to A, control people, and B, explain a very, very scary world around us. Like it just
Hmm.
provides the structure for a society based on these very elementary concepts: good, bad, like evil and godlike, and things go bad, you did bad, things go good, you did good. Like it's but it's easy, right? And it's nice to have this narrative going forward where we absolve ourselves essentially of anything because we can always fall back on like, well, this is just God teaching me a fucking lesson, or like, oh, I'll repent for my sins and I will be forgiven. And it absolves us of actually looking inside ourselves and going like, hey, I'm a really like anxious ape. Like, how do I fix myself and do better in this world and do the work myself. Because religion does the fucking work for you, as do conspiracy theories do the work for you. People monetize it and they take it to the nth degree, and you can go along with them, but you're never looking inside, right?
Mm,
It's so much easier to be like, this crazy explanation, rather than to be like, hey, maybe I'm part of the problem, or how can I be a better person around, a better person? How can I, um, you know, grow spiritually? How do I make sense of the world through what I've learned? I just, you see it everywhere. It pops up everywhere, and yeah, I'm not good at meditating. I I do it. This is actually the meditation room that we have at my co-working space,
oh,
which
nice.
I'm not using to meditate right now. Um, but yeah, so I just yeah, I'm definitely in this place of like trying to explain the world to myself, and hopefully
Yeah.
not to too many other people, except for your entire audience.
Ha 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 ha. Hey, honestly though, like you said it perfectly there. It's like this world gets confusing and it feels like now with social media and like this
Mm,
chaos and then the pandemic, it
mm,
feels more confusing, but like it's true. It's like you have to go inside. You have to kind of find your own answers and it comes from
yeah,
going inside then rather than going outside and like getting those like
yeah.
answers from somebody else who might be trying to take
But
advantage of you.
you that's the kicker. It might be trying to take advantage of you. Please listen to your healthcare professionals and your local scientist.
Oh yeah, let's add that.
That's the caveat. That's the caveat.
All right, Jill, this was amazing. And like
Thank
yeah,
you.
like you said, like I love your peanut butter. I love how it's like I love what you're doing with your business. You're giving back. You're helping people as well with it, and it's a very socially conscious like kind of business model. And this is
Mhm,
honestly this kind of stuff is something that we should be getting meaning from. So I really do
mhm.
respect it. So please tell my audience like where they can get a hold of your product. Like, are you selling
Sure,
like
sure.
all over the world as well?
All right across Canada. So
Okay.
pretty much, yeah, your local store should have it, your local grocery store. You can go to eatfatso.com and purchase through our website. You can also donate in $5 increments we just have like an ongoing fund where we'll match everything. And that will go to a worthy cause, just depending on what the fuck is happening in the world right now. So right now we're supporting the Indian um, Residential School Survivor Society, the IRSSS. So you can go to our website for that, and we'll be actually donating 100% of our profits for any purchases made through our website for the next week. But I guess I don't know when this is going to come out. Anyways, go to the website. You'll find it, eatfatso.com, and social media at eatfatso.
Awesome. Thanks
Yeah.
so much, Jill. This was great.
Awesome, North. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's good to meet you.